let's bring this a little closer. All right, I think that'll be okay. All right, get your papers out, your tests. And first thing I want to do is go over the verbs I gave you last week. And I wrote them down somewhere. And here they are. Okay. First verb I gave you was scribo in the present tense. What does scribo mean? Right, like scribble. It's really easy. You should have written scribo, scribis, scribit, scribimus, scribitus, scribunt. Can I just not write all of these out? Okay. Scribo, scribis, scribit, scribimus, scribitus, scribunt. Because scribo is scribo, scribery. It's third conjugation. Okay. Next up, I asked you to write servo in the future. First thing we have to know always is what conjugation is it? Servo, servare, servavi, servatus. So it's first. So you should have written servabo, servabis, servabit, servabimus, servabitus, servabunt. Right? With a S-E-R-V-A is our stem. Next up, habio. Habio in the present tense. Well, if I've learned my principal parts, I know that the principal parts of habio, habere, habui, habitus. But even if I didn't, you know what? The fact that it ends in EO kind of tips me off that it's second conjugation. So I should have written habio, habes, habet, habemus, habetus, habent. Very good. All right. Next up is monio. Monio in the imperfect. I'm just going to move this a little bit closer so I can see the board better. Monio is another second conjugation. Monio, monere, monui, monitus. It's another regular one. We love those. And you imperfect, so you should have written monebam, monebas, monebat, monebamus, monebatus, monebant. Beautiful. Next up was winko. I haven't forgotten to ask you what these mean. What does winko mean? You were made to play a game called Winko. You should remember. What is it? What did I name it that? Means conquer. Winko, winkery, wiki, wictus. Julius Caesar famously said, Wady, Waney, weedy, wiki, or veni, vidi, vici. Sometimes if people use ecclesiastical pronunciation. I came, I saw, I conquered. All right. So winko, winkery. It's third. And I said we wanted to put it in the present tense. So if it's third, it has to go winko, winkis, winkit, winkimus, winkitus, winkunt. Beautiful. All right. Last up, rogo. What does rogo mean? Ask. And what are the principal parts of rogo? It's regular first. Rogo, rogari, rogawi, rogatus. Beautiful. So present tense, rogo, rogas, rogat, rogamus, rogatus, rogant. Beautiful. Now, let's go back to scribo. Could we please? Let's just take a look at scribo. We did it in the present tense, but let's do it in imperfect and future just for kicks. All right. Imperfect, it's easy. Bomba spot, bomba spot is spawned. Our only problem is we have to know what our stem is like. What's the stem that I'm going to attach bomba spot to for scribo, scribery? We know it's basically S-C-R-I-B. What's the vowel? An E. An E. Because for the purposes of imperfect, we find our stem here in the infinitive. Scribe bomb, scribe bas, scribe bat, scribe bomb, scribe bat, scribe bont. All right. Future. What do we do for the future in the third conjugation? Scribam. What's the next one? Scribet, scribemus, scribetus, scribent. Beautiful. For a minute there, you scared me. I thought we just don't use the future tense with the verb because it's a pain. That's the wrong answer. It's an option, right? I just don't ever make that future. No, very good, very good. Keep practicing. I did not print out a verb conjugation sheet this week, with your packet. But don't forget, keep writing out all of your noun endings at least 2 or 3 times a week. Sit down. I mean, honestly, does it take you a minute and a half tops? Maybe not even that long. So please keep practicing them. And then you get to the point where you just don't have to practice them even every week. If you do it a couple times a month, or you'll just keep them. But you'll never get to the point where you don't ever practice them. Maybe like a couple of years down the road. I don't practice my noun endings anymore. You know what I mean? I know them. But eventually, you won't have to do it very often, okay? But that only happens if you hit it hard at the beginning. And then you can slack off a little bit when it's more cemented in your head. Okay, here's what I want to do. I want to go look over your worksheets, but I want to show you the new lesson first because I want to, for time constraints, and then we'll use the rest of the time to go over things. But before we do that, let me ask, did you have anything on that worksheet, that test sheet, when you checked it that you missed and you don't know why? Or anything you just couldn't figure out how to do? Okay. Well, but see, you're intriguing me though, because you're like, was it hard to figure out what you did?
Care. The stem was different.
Oh, yeah. Can you show me?
It's supposed to be AC.
Oh, okay. You know what? We didn't talk about this, Luke. I did not talk about this well enough. The 3 ending third declension adjectives, like acer, acris, acre. The masculine form is like ager, agri, agro, agrum, agro. Remember those nouns we learned that when you learn the nominative and the genitive, you find out the stem actually loses that E. This is the same thing. Acer, acri, acro, acrum, acro. That's on me. I did not really point that out, but does that make sense to you? Okay. Right. Let's take a look at chapter 16. And then I would like to go through and maybe we'll do some of the sentences together. How about you, John? Did you have anything that you missed and you're just flabbergasted by it? Okay, excellent. In the new lesson, we're going to learn 3 things. None of which is very difficult, I feel like. Which is maybe why they piled 3 things in. The first thing we're going to talk about is on page 110, in section 4. And Preston, yours isn't going to be 110, but it's going to be 109 or 111. I can't ever remember, but it's going to be the same as Luke's. In section 4, it says third conjugation IO. You see, I'm going to wait till everybody finds section 4, third conjugation IO. I'm going to read below that. Just as the third declension nouns have a subset of I-stem nouns, remember, we have those words like nawis, ship, that have an IUM in the genitive and I-stem. Just like that, the third conjugation also has a subset of IO verbs. This subgroup of the third conjugation has earned this designation because the first person singular ends in I-O. So look down at, there's a chart and it has the word capio. Do you see the chart with capio? What is different? They've conjugated capio for you. It's third conjugation. What's different about that and a normal third? Let me put scribo back up here. Scribo, scribis, scribit, scribimus, scribitus, scribunt. What is different about this and capio? Okay, yes. Although we're not going to deal with that line, but that is very true, and it's a good observation. Okay, capio has an I in it in two places. One place is right here, right? In the first person. Where's the other place that has an I that you don't expect? Where scribo doesn't have an I. Maybe if I say it out loud, you'll hear it. Capio, capis, capit, capimus, capitis, capiunt.
Third person plural.
Yes, it has this ending. This is the only difference in the present tense between an I-O third and a regular third. How do I know if it's an I-O third? Let's look at our vocabulary. Everybody look at your chapter 16 vocabulary. Accipio, capio, conspicio, iaccio, incipio, facio. Do you see the I-O in all of those? Look at their infinitives. Accipio, accipere. It's third. Capio, capere. Conspicio, conspicere. Iaccio, iacere. Incipio, incipere. Facio, facere. All of those, the ones that end in an I-O in the first person singular, they do this. They just do this. Just like those crazy third declension I stems. You identify them and these are easier to identify than I stem nouns because it's just right there. It's an I-O. Now, flip back to the page with the charts with capio. Little bit different in the imperfect and the future. So in the imperfect, this is B. It's on the same page for me, but B, imperfect. And it says copie bom, copie bos, copie bot, copie bomus, copie batus, copie bont. I noticed something. The stem in this case is ka, b, a. The stem has an I and an E. Whereas this one, when we did scribo, it just had an E. Scribe bomb, scribe boss. This has an IE in every single one, in every single form. But it just uses bomb, boss, bot. You just have to remember that these IO ones have an IE there. And then take a look at the future. We're not expecting to use bo bis bit because it's third conjugation, and we don't do that in third conjugation. But again, every single form has an I. Capiam, capies, capiet, capiemus, capietus, capient. It's almost easier to remember the imperfect in the future because there's an I in every single one of them. Does that make sense? But in the future, it's just two places. That's it. That's the deep secret of IO third conjugation verbs. That's all there is to know about them. That's crazy. If you want to use the perfect tense, you do the same thing you always did. You go to the third principal part and add is the it, imus is to serum. There's no difference. Just here. Just those crazy eyes floating around. Let's take a moment and go back to those verbs in your vocabulary and kind of go through them and talk about what they mean. Maybe we'll grab the noun nouns and the adjectives too. Accipio, accipary, a kepi, a keptum, receive. We get the word accept. I accept a present from you. When you give it, I receive it. Notice the third principal part. Accipio, accipary, a kepi. A kepi. The next one is very much like it. Capio, coppery, kepi, captum. Take, seize, or capture. The word capture you can tell it comes from captum. Conspicio, conspicary, conspexy, conspectum. Catch sight of. Conspicuous. You know, if something is conspicuous, it's very obvious to see. The sun is conspicuous today. It's very easy to see that the sun is shining. It's conspicuous. All right, the next one. What conjugation is the next one? Consumo, consumeri, consumpsi, consumptum. What conjugation is that?
Third.
It's third because the ERE. Is it an IO third? No, because it doesn't have an IO. Consumo, consumeri, consumpsi, consumptum means consume or eat. This is painfully obvious. Yakio, yakari, yeki, yaktum. It's really fun to say. This is another one of our IOs, and it means throw. Eject. Remember, Latin doesn't have the letter J. So often when you take a Latin word and you make it English, the I's turn into J's. Very much like in Latin, Jesus is Jesus. All right. So yeki, eject, the I has turned into a J. Throw. And of course, if you're ejected from something, you are thrown out. Incipio, incipere, incepi, inceptum. Look at that. And then look at accipio. Do you see how the principal parts of incipio are pretty much the same as accipio, except for the, yeah. So, and capio is very, very similar to these. If you learned accipio, you've learned incipio. Incipio means begin. Inception means the beginning of something. Facio, facere, feci, factum. Do or make. This is a very popular word in Latin because we use the word do a lot in English, and they use it a lot in Latin. It's another one of our IOs. And why do you think the word fact comes from the word to do or make? It's fact. What does that have to do with doing? Kind of have to use your imagination a little bit. If it's a fact that I drove here this morning, it's something I did. It's done. It's fact, right? It's done. It's done. Okay, next one. They don't write the whole word out because it's one of our friendly, normal first conjugations. Orno, ornari, ornari, ornatum, decorate or adorn. If something is very ornate, it's highly decorated. Surgo, surgery, surrexi, surrectum. What conjugation is it? And is it an IO third?
No.
It is not. It's just a normal third. Rise or arise. Resurrection. You know, re means again. Rising again. Resurrection. From resurgo. Last one. Weewo, weewery, weeksy, weekdom. Live. Live. What conjugation is it? It is third. Is it IO?
No.
It is not. It is not. Okay. So we have 1 first, 3 just regular old third conjugations, and a bunch of new IOs. Pay close attention to the principal parts when you learn them, because some of them are a little odd. Okay. Let's take a look at our nouns and our adjectives while we're on this page. We have a few nouns. This one's very cool. Camera means room. What? Camera means room. So cameras, when cameras were first invented, they called it a camera obscura was the name of this device. And do you remember, have you ever seen like old pictures or old movies where they have a camera that's on a tripod, and there's a cloth, and the guy would stick his head under the cloth and take the picture? Okay. Obscura means dark. It made a little dark room, and the image would come in through the lens and would capture it on film. Nowadays, most people just take digital photos, but even when I was little, I had a camera that I loaded film into, and maybe you don't even know this. And you take the film out of the camera, and then you take it to the drugstore, and they develop it into pictures for you, just like if you have digital ones, made. But it was a little roll, a little cylinder of film, and you take it in. And the camera is a little room, a little dark room where the image enters and gets imprinted on the film. But not anymore. Anyway, camera means room. Camera does not mean camera, because the Romans didn't have cameras. So I can remember that. Okay. Flos florus means flower. Why do we call flower sellers florists? Because flos florus means flower. And it is masculine. Ignis is masculine, and it means fire. If you ignite something, you catch it on fire. Tell me something special about ignis. What do you notice about ignis?
It's an ice one.
It's an istem. It's got a nominative and a genitive with the same number of syllables. It's an istem. Lectus. Lectus means couch, bed, or bier, like a couch all decked out. Often it's a funeral one, and they lay you out on this decorated couch. You can just learn couch or bed. Lectus. And nucus, nut, or a nut tree. All right. Those are your new nouns. And then we have a couple of adjectives. Felix, felicus. It's a 2-ending third declension adjective, and it means happy. And flammeus. This one's very easy to learn. It means fiery or flame covered, and it's an adjective. Interestingly, it can also mean, as a neuter noun, a bridal veil. I wonder if they were red. Yeah, wearing white is kind of a new thing. Like all people in all times have done that. Okay, those are your new words. We need to start learning all these words, which means nominative and genitive. It means all the principal parts. All right, we need to memorize them. Okay, so we've learned it. We've looked at our new words. We've learned about IO, third conjugations. Let's look at the 2 other things that they want us to learn in this lesson. First of all, before I show it to you in the book, let's talk about it. Verbs have something called mood. And they tell you that a mood of a verb indicates the attitude of the subject towards the action that takes place. Up until now in Latin, and most of the time with each other, we speak in what is called the indicative mood. This is the thing you've already learned. It indicates that something is true. The eraser is on the table. I'm just indicating to you this is true. There's water in the bottle. The car is parked outside. These are all indicative. I'm just making a statement about something. But sometimes I speak in a different relationship to what I'm saying is true. Sometimes I'm telling you to do something. Shut the door. Right. As the speaker, I have a kind of a different attitude towards it. I'm not just making an observation. I'm telling you I expect something to happen as a result of these words. And this mood is called the imperative mood. Imperative is a fancy name for a command. Shut the door, eat your vegetables, go to sleep, be quiet, answer the question. These are all commands. When I give a command, who is the subject? What is the subject of this sentence? Eat your broccoli. What's the subject of eat your broccoli? Who eat? Who do I want to eat? You. We sometimes put it in parentheses, call it understood subject. Imperatives, commands always have an understood subject. For us, it's always you because you is the only form of that we have in English. But remember, in Latin, they have two yous, a single you and a plural you. And it just so happens they have the ability in Latin to give a command and say, I'm telling one person to do it, and I'm telling a bunch of people to do it. If I just say, open your book, I just stand here and look at all, open your book. You don't know if I want one of you to open it or all of you. You have no way of knowing. You have to see who I'm looking at. But in Latin, you would know. So we're going to learn how to make a command in Latin. And it's actually really, really easy. In Latin, to form a command, here, I'm going to use the words they have used here. I'm going to write down the infinitives, okay? Amo, amari, video, videre, mito, miteri, and capio, which is one of your new IO verbs, okay? If I want to tell someone to love someone else, all I do is take away the RE from the infinitive. Ama. Ama. That is a command to one person, to love. If I want all of you to love something, amate. All of you, love it. That's it. That's how to make a command. And the great thing is it works the same for most verbs. So, videre means to see. If I want one of you to see, I say vide. I want all of you to say, see, videte. Does that make sense? You see the pattern? Mito means send. If I want one of you to send something, I say send the letter. Send. If I want all of you to do it, videte, send the letters. And it actually works the same for the IO. Seize, capture. I tell one person to do it. I messed up. It does not work the same for these. Oh, I'm so sorry I messed up. Got ahead of myself. Third conjugation has an I there. So let's write this. This is send to one person, capture to one person, send and capture. I'm sorry I botched that. Does that make sense? Now, there are a few words. This is right below that chart or on the next page. It says the verbs dico, to say, duco, lead, facio, do, and pharaoh, bring, have an irregular form of the singular imperative. The plural form is regular. The singular form is dik, duke, fak, and fair. It's got no E for no good reason, those four words. One of which you just learned, facio. Have you learned Dico and Duco. Okay, so 3 of those 4 you know. And that's what their imperative looks like. Okay, so let's look. Did they not give you a sentence that has an imperative? I wanted to find one in action for you. Oh, they ask you to make them. You know what? They ask you to make imperatives, but they don't ask you to translate a sentence with an imperative. Apparently, they're not going to sneak one up on you until you've learned to make them. Does this make sense? If I want one person to do it, I take away the RE from the infinitive. If I want more than one person to do it, I stick a TE on the end. Except for the third conjugation, I stick an ITE. It turns into an I. Okay, that's the second of the 3 things in this chapter. Any questions? It's pretty straightforward. You just have to learn how to do it. Okay, the last thing is called the vocative case. It is the easiest thing of all. The 3 things we're learning. You've learned 5 cases: nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, ablative. You're like, what? They're throwing a new case? Calm down. It's easy. I'm going to read what it says by section 43. Oh, I said section 4 earlier because the 1 had a pin drawn through it. In addition to the 5 main cases that you have been studying, there are 2 more cases that occur less frequently: the locative and the vocative. For now, we will only learn the vocative and save the locative for another place. The vocative case, from the Latin vocare, to call, is the case of direct address. We use this case when talking directly to someone or something. It's like this: Luke, open your book. John, do you know the answer to this question? There is no question, by the way. Preston, what are you doing this afternoon? Whenever I speak directly to you, that's vocative. Children, obey your parents. I'm talking directly to the children. You have good news. It says study the examples below. Does everybody see the chart? It says puella, and the nominative of puella is puella. The vocative of puella is puella. I'm liking this. The nominative of puer is puer. The vocative of puer is puer. You see a pattern emerging. Uh-oh. The nominative of student is discipulus. The vocative is discipulae. But look at the genitive. The genitive is the same. If a noun ends in us, its vocative ends in E, in the nominative. Unless it's filius, and filius is an aberration. The vocative of filius, son, is fili, 1 I. The nominative of king is rex. The vocative of king is rex. Notice, everything is the same as if it were the subject, unless it is a noun that ends in us. So if I say slave, make my dinner. We know the word for slave is servus. So when I talk to the slave, I turn it into an E. Serve, make my dinner. All the rest of them are the same. You don't really care whether it's vocative or subject. How will you know, though? Well, everybody look at number 4. Sentence number 4 in exercise 7. So go to exercise 7. Look at number 4. Do you see how this sentence begins with ankylai? And then a comma. Oh, and there was a imperative. Parate. Does anybody know what an ancilla is? I know what it means, but I don't know what translation they gave you for it. Handmaid, maid, servant, right? Okay. Servants, parate, prepare. You see, I'm talking directly to the servants, and it's got a comma after it. Usually in English and in Latin for you, if they're talking directly to someone, they'll put comma after it. Slave, make my dinner. And you'll see a noun sitting there by itself with a comma, and you'll know I'm talking to them. That's how you will know. You see why I said that was the easiest of all? Really only, if it's an us, turn it into an e, except for filius, and then the rest of them are the same. And all the other cases are the same in plurals. All right. This week, I have printed out the chapter 16 WAD for you. I already sent to your parents the key, both keys that we have to make heads or tails out of the answers. Work your way through it. It's got it laid out day by day. Do not neglect working on your vocabulary every day. And reviewing how to conjugate your different verbs and your noun endings. I don't think there should be anything weird in there. So for the few minutes we have left, could I have somebody's chapter 15 test? And let's just go over a couple of sentences. Awesome. You're a good. Ooh, no, I thought they were making you put it into Latin for a minute. Okay, let's do the two sentences together. I know you did them, but it's nice to go through one by one, word by word, and know what's what. Okay, iter parentum breve erit. What is the verb in that sentence? Erit. And what's erit mean?
Third person singular.
It is.
He, sheer, it will be.
He, sheer, it will be. Well done. Let me just stop and ask you guys, with a verb like that, do you think we're going to find a direct object ever in the sentence? With the be verb. When I say was, is, were, will be, is anything really happening? Nobody's doing anything to anything. I'm just making an observation. We're probably not going to find any accusative or dative. But can we find a nominative? Is there something that could be the he, she, or it that will be? Iter, which means what? The journey. The journey will be. Is there an adjective that seems to maybe describe the journey? Breve. Mm-hmm. Do you know what it means? And you can, if you've got it all written down, you don't have to conjure it up out of your brief, short or brief. Iter itineris is neuter. So since the journey is the thing that will be brief, they had to pick a neuter nominative to describe it. Well, the journey will be brief. We only have one word left. What is this word? Parent. And what case is it? Tell me more about it.
It's masculine, genitive, singular, second declension.
It is not second declension. Parens, parentis. This is the word parent. It is actually third. So it's EMAS. So it is genitive and it is plural. So how can I and it means parent, obviously. How can I translate that if it's genitive plural?
journey of the parents will be short.
The journey of the parents, or we can say the parents' journey, but we have to do it like this with the little apostrophe on the outside of the S because it's plural. Beautiful. All right, one more, and then I think we're just going to quit for the day. We started early anyway. All right. Oh, it's a long one. Habitabitne, Julia, I guess Julia, in urbe, cum amicis, juvenibus. All right, find me a verb. You may have this back, sir. Habitabitne. What's the nay? Tell me.
It makes it question.
Okay, now I'm going to ignore the nay. Habitabit.
It means live. Future. Third person singular. He, sheer, it will live.
He, sheer, it will live. Is there anything in our sentence that seems to be nominative and could be the he, sheer, it? Julia. Julia doesn't have a little line over her A, so Julia will live in urbe.
City.
So what did you do with the in? What did you say it again, Luke?
It means urbe means city.
Urbe means city. So what is in urbe?
In the city.
Julia will live in the city. Cum with amicus juvenibus. I noticed something. They're both ablative plural. And I remember something. I remember that cum takes the ablative, which is very, very convenient for me. With whom will she live in the city? With amicis juvenibus.
Her friends.
With friends, they're juvenibus friends. Young, with her young friends. It's like Julia's having a nice life. Live in the city with her young friends. Okay, awesome. Notice something. This is second declension. This is third declension, but it doesn't matter because they're both ablative, they're both plural, and they're both masculine. Well, I hope Julia is not living with a bunch of guys. Actually, this could be feminine. They could be feminine too. We're going to assume Julia is living with her lady friends. She would never, ever do that. Okay. That's it. I'm going to let you guys go. Do you have any questions? Anything that you are having trouble with? This is going to be a memorize week, but it's mostly a memorize words week, right? Because the IO verbs are not crazy weird, and vocative is really easy, and imperative is fairly easy. Okay, I'll shut us down. Oh dear.